So this is another local special. It's an insurance, life, and the everything in between part today as we talk local politics here in Cecil County, Maryland. If you haven't seen the video yet, where Adam Straight gave his entire platform basically in a 35-minute bite-sized segment, go into the videos from before, watch the whole thing, and then comment about it, what you took away from the video. We have Dawn Branch on with us today in that same vein of conversation, talking local politics and hopefully giving you the opportunity to learn something, become an educated voter, so that when you go to the ballot box and you vote for somebody, it's not just a nice name. It's not just something that looks like a good idea. You formulated a personal opinion and then maybe even a passion to spread that to others. So Dawn, thank you for joining me today, taking a few minutes to educate our audience. And you ready for the first question?
I am, and thank you very much for having me here today.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about who you are and your background in Cecil County, so those that are watching can kind of introduce themselves to you.
As you said, my name is Dawn Branch. I have been a resident of Cecil County for almost 20 years. I was a small business owner of a travel agency for 15 years. I ran my own business, and I managed everything, and I had the budgeting experience that went with it and the employees. I was also elected to the Cecil County Board of Education School Board, as well as it's more well known, for 8 years, 2 terms, 2010 to 2018. And 5 of those years I was president. I currently work for Cecil County Public Schools and the Judy Center in a grant-funded position where I focus on early education, early childhood education, and I support birth to age 5 children and their families.
Awesome. So you got a lot of background in all of the things that are important for this position that you're running for. Explain to those that are watching today what you're running for and what area of the county that covers, so people can look for your name.
I am running for the Cecil County Council. I specifically represent District 5, which is northeast with a little overlap into a few other areas, but it's District 5. It is a countywide election where everyone can vote, but specifically council members must live in the district they represent. Districts 1 through 5, mine again is District 5.
Okay, so that's important to know. I'm learning a little bit about politics as we go and the governance of the area. So it's not like the, say, U.S. Congress, where I can only vote for a congressman in my particular district. When I go to the ballot as a Cecil County resident, I'll have the opportunity to vote for what you're describing as anybody, just even though you're servicing that one area?
The primary election is again based on your party. So you, as a Republican candidate, anybody registered Republican will be able to vote for myself if you live in Cecil County.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So what qualifies you to run for this position in county government, and what qualifies you for that spot?
As I mentioned earlier, I have the 15 years experience as a small business owner. That gives you experience in management, budgeting, finances, specifically even customer service, which translates to everything, how you treat people. And that is important not only when you're in a government position, it's in your everyday life, how you act when you go to the grocery store when no one's looking. I think that is important. And I have a lot of people that have represented me as kind and just generally a nice person. But I'm also qualified on paper. As I said, I have a financial background. I've been in finance since I graduated. The first time in the 90s, we don't need to mention how far ago in the 90s, but with my bachelor's degree, I started out working in a finance company, ran my own business for 15 years. I was a stay-at-home mom for 5 years. I am very proud of that as well. And then now I manage 13 grants for the school system in the Judy Center. So my strength is the ability to read a budget, understand a budget, and act appropriately with it. I was on the school board for 8 years, as I mentioned. I have never wavered from my support of public education, whether it was before the school board as a mom, as a citizen of Cecil County and also as a candidate for county council.
Awesome. So I think it's important too, in case someone hasn't watched any of the other videos or just recently have kind of figured out what's going on, for the residents to understand that we're not operating in a deficit type situation where programs are threatening to be cut because there's no money to fund them. We're actually operating in a surplus situation, which is a good thing. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you spend every dollar that you have. A family couldn't run that way, and a government shouldn't either. But we have money. In fact, the current county executive gave out $20 million in property tax rebates, which affectionately works to be about a $700 per person for property owners, but gave out $20 million of that excess and now is concerned about funding the schools properly. Can you kind of speak to your fiscal thoughts on managing an excess, funding departments properly, and just kind of globally that idea?
I think I understand where the county executive is coming from as far as not wanting to spend down all of the money, because right now revenues are good. We are swimming in them. But we don't know what next year or the next couple of years will bring. So you always need to make sure you have an emergency fund, better known as a rainy day fund. So I understand the savings there. I don't understand, sending $700 back to some of us and others did not get any, or they got far less. Quite frankly, it was just enough to mess up a lot of people's escrow, myself included. I think what you have to do when you have a revenue stream where you could support essential services such as public education, public safety initiatives, the libraries, emergency services, and all of the other government services, you have to support them when you can. But I feel like they've been neglected. While we have the revenue, we have to take care of our county, especially in times when we don't, and we all are trying to share that same dollar to function as a community. Again, it's not a lack of revenue. I feel like it's a lack of planning and efficient spending. I believe in fiscal responsibility and conservative spending. However, we cannot continue to neglect our community and with the level of revenues we have. The long-term strategy will help plan ahead for when we don't have as much revenue, but it'll also take care of our county. Most important to note is we do not have to raise taxes to take care of our community services.
Exactly. The money's there. Taxes don't have to go up. There's plenty of funding throughout the world to make that kind of thing happen. I asked this question to Adam. I know I didn't put it on our list today, but I don't think it's too complicated. The buzzwords accountability and transparency seem to be very popular in this election cycle. What does accountability and transparency mean to you?
First, I'm going to start with transparency. I'm going to do them in the reverse order. Transparency is that any taxpayer-funded budget should be available for the taxpayers to see and understand and ask questions about. It should not be a secret. There should be no hidden categories. It should be right up front. I want to know where my money is going, just like my neighbors want to know. So transparency is very important, and everyone deserves the right to be able to find that budget or know who to ask for it. Accountability is you holding someone responsible. When I had my own business, I was accountable for what my customers gave me for their vacations. I had to be transparent to them as well, and I had to be accountable to them. Same works for the government. I am accountable to my community, to my county, and I have to answer to them because, again, they are the citizens that vote for you, for whoever the position is.
What makes you different than the person that you're running against?
I understand the school budget. I believe in public education. I support it. I have been a strong advocate since before I even became a mom. Public education is important because it is our future leaders that we are trying to teach now. If we do not fund public education, our students will suffer. There are 15,000 students and approximately 2,000 employees. If we do not pay the employees fairly, they will leave. Our students will be taught and supported by unqualified individuals, and that is absolutely not fair because they matter and they deserve more. Public safety has suffered under the current budget, and other government services, such as the emergency services in the libraries and things that I mentioned earlier. Now, under all of this is under the purview of the county executive specifically, because that is the person that develops the budget. County council approves it. The problem with what I see now is there isn't a checks and balances as was established in the charter government. It was passed by voters in 2010. It became effective in 2012. And I do not see a checks and balances right now. And I do not see council and the executive working together well. There's too much hostility. There seems to be too many secrets in the council where everybody's not sharing, or things aren't being brought up for votes that should be. I absolutely do not believe in that. When I was on the school board, I was one of 5 members. Even as president, I chose to discuss everything with the school board. It wasn't my information, it was our information. And that's the difference, is I will not hide anything from council, and I believe in the checks and balances because that's the only fair thing to do for the citizens of Cecil County.
I can absolutely agree. I observed something very similar the last 2 meetings I attended. One meeting had about 100, the next meeting had about 10,000. I would hope we keep up that level of involvement. Otherwise, a de-escalation of that involvement will be really disappointing. But the county council spoke to checks and balances. I think it was even the county president or the board. You know the name of the role. Don't quote me on it, but they use that term. But if you're not checking the executive branch, then you're not serving as the legislative branch. Sure, the executive, the president per se, doesn't need to come to a congressional session. But at some point, don't they need to? Like, obviously, it's not her responsibility. Obviously, she doesn't micromanage the legislative branch. But when the entire darn county shows up and your nearly entire sheriff's department has to be present for the event, at some point, shouldn't you show up?
Absolutely. You should be paying attention to what's going on. I don't believe in getting important information through an email. I need to be there to hear it for myself and then share it appropriately. But it's about fact finding.
Yeah. I also think that checks and balances are important, and hearing from the community is important. One meeting I was at, it seemed like half of the council wasn't in attendance. Now, I understand it's not a full-time job and they have other responsibilities, but if you don't show up to school, eventually you get in trouble. If you don't show up to your job, you eventually end up unemployed. If you don't run your own business, your business goes out of business. What are your thoughts about attendance if you were to be elected to council?
I think attendance is important because, like you said, I can't do my job if I'm not there. I understand also that things come up. People get sick. Other than that, unfortunate incidences do happen. And that would be the only excusable absence because you can't control a death in the family or an illness. But other than that, you plan vacations and other outings around your schedule for work. I don't get to just take off from my full-time job when I feel like it because I have a job to do. So you schedule all your personal time around your work. That's my belief because I have a job to do and I can't do it if I'm not there.
Well said. I think the biggest issue that a lot of folks are most interested in is this whole maintenance of effort issue. Now, I learned recently a very interesting point about maintenance of effort is every time you fund above it, you've now created a new level of maintenance of effort. It's interesting. Obviously, the county can't give out tens of millions of dollars without affecting next year dramatically. I get that. But the federal money's gone. COVID money's gone. A lot of this extra funding is gone, but the programs are still there and need to be funded. So how do you address this maintenance of effort issue, knowing that it affects next year and the year after so drastically?
Well, I think you can look at the reasoning behind why maintenance of effort became a law from the state of Maryland. A lot of counties, including our own, were being funded at unreasonable minimal levels, and school systems were not able to function. The state formula is a per pupil formula, so it depends on September 30th how many students are enrolled in a school system, and then there's a formula that's generated, and that's how much money you get. There are other grants and things that go with it, but it's basically a per pupil allotment. Now, the local share is not completely formula driven. Maintenance of effort protects school systems from being funded at a drastically lower level than what we're already being given. Maintenance of effort is terrible for a school system. It is not enough money to be successful. And being successful means our students are successful. There's no profits coming in. There's no billboards on the road about, hey, look at us, we're number one. Cecil County is last in funding right now, and that is a choice by the county executive. Last 3 years in a row, we've received maintenance of effort, as well as in the past from other county executives. Sometimes when revenues are less, it's understandable, but when the revenues are high, in this case, it's not understandable. And again, it's designed to protect from even less money. And yes, if you give $5 million this year, then it's you've raised the bar, and every year it would go up. But there are also other ways to fund a school system legally and profitably, so that they can keep their teachers, so that they can not have to lay off 183 people and cut programs such as sports and the arts, and make parents pay for AP exams, things that a lot of families are already struggling. The last thing we need to do is make it harder on them just to send their children to school.
Very true. I think there is a whole crop of folks that probably won't ever watch this video, and that's okay, who don't have any kids, maybe never had any kids, maybe their kids are long gone and grown, that the effects of the school almost seem unimportant to them. But here's the truth of it. The people that are educated in the schools are the people that show up at your house when you call 911 because something bad happened. Mm-hmm. The school system is almost an attractor to people that may move into the county, and people don't move into the county if the schools aren't good. Like, there are broad reaching effects that start in this educational bubble that may not have directly affect you and your life and your lack of kids, but can have broad reaching effects when you end up in a nursing home and there's nobody there that lives there locally and doesn't care about you, and you're being taken care of by strangers. It happens in so many different levels, but it all starts in education and public safety. So what would you want people to, if people want to support your campaign, support you, vote for you, like, how can they get a hold of you and share information about you after watching this video?
I have a website. It's branch4cecilcouncil.com. I also have a Facebook page, Dawn Branch for County Council, and I have my email address, and other information is there that they can always reach out to me as well.
Awesome. And we want to make sure to keep in mind that this is about the primary election, which is coming up in just a few months, right?
Yes, May 14th is the actual primary election. Early voting starts before that. I am running for Cecil County Council in the primary Republican election.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time to educate the viewing audience about your background, your experience, the things that you're passionate about. I think when people watch these videos, that what you and Adam did, you can really pick up what they're passionate about, what's important to them, why they're taking the time out of their lives to run for council. Like, nobody does that for fun, right? Nobody is like, this is a cool thing to do with my time. They do it because it matters to them. And it should matter to you what their thoughts are, their platforms, their principles, so that when you go to the ballot and you vote for a person and not just a name that looked like a nice thing to do. I appreciate you being here today, taking the time with us. Share the video, like the video, comment below. The more you do that, the more YouTube will show it to people that need to know.
Thanks, Chris.